Hi, this is Andy, the Universal Nurse, and I'm going to talk about a very taboo subject today. This is not necessarily health related, though it is, but it's something I'm pretty frustrated and angry about with the new administration we have, and I guess I want to do some education that maybe people aren't aware of. I just wrote a very long Facebook posting and then realized I really have a lot to say on this subject, and I think it's important that people are informed and don't kind of get into the mass hysteria and a runaway train, and which people tend to do when they kind of do things without facts. What I'm talking about is, okay, it's very important for people to know I did not vote for Donald Trump as president, but after he was elected, I embraced him. I accepted the results. I wasn't one of those awful people that was out looting and pillaging in the name of, being upset about Hillary not winning. That just to me is a bunch of, looters who wanted just an excuse to loot. I don't think that solves anything when people act like that. I was actually embarrassed to be associated with that group because honestly, I'm not Democrat or Republican. I'm independent. But at the time I voted for Clinton, I kind of felt I was voting for the lesser of the two evils, which I think a lot of people did with both candidates, honestly. But I just want to make it clear, I didn't vote for him, but once he was elected, I accepted the results, and I actually kind of embraced some of his ideas, because some of his ideas I wholeheartedly agree with. And I felt, if he does half of what he says he's going to do, he's going to be a decent president. So like I said, I embraced him. The thing that's happened recently that just really has me distraught and upset is this whole new thing that's coming now about defunding Planned Parenthood and family planning clinics. Lots of things go into play here why I'm upset about this, but I'm just going to start with a basic thing. A lot of people don't understand what they're doing when they say that kind of stuff. Let's defund them, I'm pro-choice, I'm pro-life, I'm pro-whatever. I don't give two craps what you are. I don't care if you're pro-abortion, pro-life, pro-choice, wickety-wackety, whatever. I could not care less. Everybody has the right to an opinion, and whatever your opinion is great. I'm personally pro-choice, and one of the things that happens is people equate pro-choice with pro-abortion, and those are not the same things. Am I pro-abortion under certain circumstances? Yes, I am. I don't think fathers who have impregnated their, 12 or 13-year-old daughters, I don't think it's okay to force that child to have a baby, under those circumstances. I don't. So I'm very pro-abortion in those circumstances. But a lot of people get kind of wrapped up in this pro-life or pro-choice, not understanding there's kind of an in-between. And there is an in-between, and I'm an in-betweener. I'm not a big fan of abortion, but in the same token, I don't have any right at all to say what job people have, what people do with their lives, who they marry, how many kids they have, what they do on this planet. That's not my right. I don't have that right. And I don't have any right to tell somebody, who's impregnated by their father at 12 that they can't have an abortion. That's not my right. I don't walk in everybody else's shoes. They walk in their shoes. They know their circumstances of their pregnancy. They know what's happened with them and what they do or do not need to do or what's best for them. I don't. So when a lot of pro-choicers are like me, we don't necessarily think abortion's a great thing. We don't. But in the same token, we don't feel like we have the right to tell other people what to do under those circumstances. So, that's getting that out right in the forefront so you don't think, oh, you're just a ultra pro-choice, democratic, blah, blah, blah. First of all, once again, I'm not democratic. I'm independent. And second of all, I'm pro-choice under certain circumstances. Yes, I am. And I don't think anybody has a right. Here's the two things that are happening that are really upsetting to me. I'll just start with the first and whack it out of the way. Donald Trump is highly encouraging the religious factions, the churches, the religious groupings in general, to get highly involved in their local governments. As far as this funding goes, he is encouraging them to do that. He's asked them to do that. He's saying, I'm going to open the door for religious parties to get involved in government. Now, guys and girls, I don't know about you, but, just last week, Donald Trump was saying that he wants to go back to the good old Constitution, and he wants to enforce the Constitution as it was written, and la-di-da-di-da-di-da. Yay! I think a lot of us would like that, to be honest. I think we've just veered way off the main track. Do some of the tenets of the Constitution need to be updated? Sure, they do, because things were different in the time they were written. But the basic principles behind most of the Constitution's pretty good. Well, Donald Trump, you can't say we're going to go back to trying to enforce the Constitution, and its basic ideas, and then on the other hand, encourage the religious rights to get involved in governmental proceedings, because that's violation of separation of church and state. So that makes no sense to me, because that's a huge tenet of the Constitution, is separation of church and state. So on one hand, we're giving lip service over here. Yeah, we're going to the Constitution. On the other hand, we're saying, yeah, but we can go ahead and break this tenet of the Constitution because I want to. My concern is, I don't know Donald Trump. I don't know what makes him tick. I know he just says whatever comes into his brain at any given moment. He never checks himself. And, that's okay, whatever. But he's got to understand, you can't be wishy-washy. Which one is it? And unfortunately, a lot of people are jumping on this boat and going, yeah, we're doing the Constitution. Yeah, pro-life. Yeah, whatever. Well, you can't have both, guys. You can't have both. If you're going to tell churches that they can get involved in governmental procedures and laws and rules, but say we're going to enforce the Constitution, hello, which one is it? You can't do both. They're not congruent. So that's my first real upset about this. And when I heard him last week saying, I'm going to encourage churches and religious organizations to get involved in governmental proceedings when it comes to family planning, I just about had a heart attack, because I thought, you're a moron. You can't do that. You can't do that. Pick, Donald. Which one is it? The second thing I think it's really important for people to know is the family planning clinic idea and what defunding family planning clinics actually entails. And this is coming up from a first-hand account, because I worked at a Planned Parenthood for 2 years. So I have a pretty good basic understanding of Planned Parenthood and how it runs. And I know that's the one they're going after the most, because Planned Parents are the ones who are openly doing abortions. And if you don't believe in abortion, well, then let's go after the whole clinic. Well, let me explain something about the defunding of family planning clinics. And I'm lumping them all together because there's other ones that do abortions too, besides Planned Parenthood. I was very proud of my job at Planned Parenthood. A little source of information here. Less than 2% of the care that Planned Parenthood and family planning clinics give is abortions. Less than 2%. Think about that. So 98+% has nothing to do with abortion services. On top of it, abortions are not funded with government money of any sort. Abortions are the one private pay service that when you go to a family planning clinic, you have to pay up front in cash or a check or with your debit card or whatever. But that doesn't receive any funding. They don't receive funding for abortions. People pay outright for their abortions. So when you cut funding to a family planning clinic, you're not touching the abortion services, which is the whole point behind what they're trying to do. They figure if they hit them where they live, by taking their funding away, well, that's going to make them quit having abortions. No, nothing could be further from the truth. You're actually going to drive the opposite problem to heaven. Because what funding does in family planning clinics is tons and tons and tons of education, first and foremost. Honestly, my job there, that's probably the thing I felt proudest of when I walked through picket lines, and I walked through all kinds of awful crap to go to my job at Planned Parenthood in Des Moines for the 2 years I was there. They were out there with their signs and trying to block our entrance, and that's just ignorant to me, because you have no idea what's going on inside that clinic. The number of people we educated, just plain educated, on pregnancy prevention, STDs, family planning, cancers, all that is staggering. And what's even more sad and interesting is the amount of education we did with people who grew up in very religious homes where sex was a dirty issue and nobody talked about it, so they got no education. So, they were already pregnant, or they were trying to stop pregnancy but had no idea how, and their boyfriend told them they couldn't get pregnant if they wore socks while they were having sex. Oh my God, I heard the craziest things, but people believed it because the sex education they should have had, which would have been at home, never occurred because sex was a dirty taboo issue because this was a very religious home. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not saying they're not out there, but not one time in my 28-year nursing career have I ever done sex education with somebody who came from an open-minded home with loving, informative parents. Never once. The only education I've ever done with people are people that came from highly religious homes where you just didn't talk about sex. So these poor schmoes come into, the Planned Parenthoods or whatever other clinics, ignorant. And they need all the education they can get to prevent getting pregnant so they don't have to have abortions. So that's funding. Education's just a huge part of their funding is for education. So people don't get pregnant. So people don't get STDs. So people can figure out the contraceptive method they need that works best for them, blah, 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 blah. That's what the funding's for. What the funding's for, cervical cancer screenings and prostate screenings and all kinds of cancer screenings. That's what the funding's for birth control for people who can't afford it, so that we don't have babies that need to be aborted. That's what the funding is for. It's not for abortions. Abortions have to be paid up front by the patient. So these people are just getting beside themselves about defunding. These clinics are just ignorant. And if you're one of those ignorant people, I'm trying to tell you something really important. You're shooting yourself in the foot when you do this. Because all that's going to happen is we're going to take away education, which is so still needed in the 21st century. We still have thousands and millions of people not being educated by their own parents. We still need that education. We know it still needs cancer screenings. We still need all that stuff. You defund that, then you take away that stuff. So now you are back to having people with no education who are ignorant, who are getting pregnant, who need abortions. So you've just jinxed yourself with the way we're doing this. I'm telling you, people, defunding Planned Parenthoods and family planning clinics isn't going to do a goddamn thing. It's not going to do a thing but make things 65,000 times worse, because you're literally going to trip people over into doing the thing you're trying to stop them from doing in the first place, which is abortions. Get over the abortion thing. That I don't care. I have friends that are pro-life. We don't fight about this. I respect their opinions. They respect my opinions. This is not a fighting subject because everybody has a right to their opinions. The big problem is when you're enforcing your opinions onto other people to the detriment of their physical health and well-being. That's a whole nother subject. And that's exactly what defunding is going to do. So the point behind this video, and you can tell I'm passionate about this subject just makes me insane, because I realize most people, as I wrote in my Facebook thing, if you have not ever been intimately involved with a family planning clinic or Planned Parenthood, you truly just don't even know what goes on behind the scenes. Planned Parenthood gets this horrible rap for being an abortion clinic. That's all they're known as, which is just laughable because that's less than 2% of what they do. That's amazing to me that that's what everything is centered on, when the other 98% of what these clinics do is just completely wiped under the rug because it doesn't serve, the religious right purposes, and it doesn't, then people can't be up in arms and upset about crap that they want to be upset about. So we're just not going to talk about that other 98%. 98+%. Think about that. 98+% of what family planning clinics do has nothing at all to do with abortions. And abortions are not funded by government tax dollars. They're privately paid. You have to pay to have one. You don't get a free card. You don't get to pass go. You don't get out of jail free. You have to pay for them. So defunding a clinic isn't going to stop abortions from occurring. It's just going to now cause more abortions to have to happen, because now you have all these people that don't have access to contraception. They don't have access to the education about contraception. They don't have access to all the stuff that these clinics do. Now you've literally just made the problem you're upset about 100 times worse by defunding. Listen to me. If you're pro-life, terrific. I hear you. I'm not a big fan of abortion. I understand. But trying to take away the monumental purpose of what these clinics serve just because you're pro-life is so incredibly silly. It's so silly. You're hurting your friends. You're hurting your neighbors. You're hurting people in your own family. Interesting thing, when I worked at Planned Parenthood, I worked at two different ones. I worked in one across the state, and these same people who were out picketing with their signs and trying to hit us, by the way, when we walked in, which I don't think anybody has a right to do, no matter what your opinion is, and just made our lives miserable and taking pictures of our car plates and all this crap, which I got to be honest, didn't bother me at all, because I don't really care. You know, these were the same people that were bringing their children in to the faraway clinic because they didn't think it was the same staff that worked there, and they were bringing them into the far clinic to have abortions. These same people that were pro-life. Because when it happens in your own family, it's a whole different thing than what's happening to strangers. True story, when your 13-year-old daughter gets knocked up by your 15-year-old son, you don't want her to have that baby. God, no, you don't. I wouldn't either. So, you drive to the faraway clinic thinking nobody's going to recognize you, and you let your daughter have an abortion so her life is not misery forever because she had to carry a baby that her brother impregnated her with. That's an absolutely true story that happened. And there's more of those. So, it's one thing to be upset and angry about something. That's okay. But to then just make a mountain out of a molehill, and this is a mountain out of a molehill, because the molehill is the abortion rate of Planned Parenthoods, and the mountain is the other 98% of what they do. So to not understand what you're doing when you defund these clinics, that you're literally taking the issue you're so upset about and you're guaranteeing that issue continues worse than it did before, I don't think people would be so up in arms about that. So that's my spiel. I'm just trying to do some education about, family planning clinics. If you don't know what they do, that's basically what they do the most of. Abortions, teeny tiny bit, and self-paid. So no funding involved in those. Funding helps everything else. So you're literally taking funding away from all the stuff that you probably agree with for the most part. How silly is that? So, when you're trying to push for this, just think about those things, that, you're pushing for the wrong reasons, and B, that one of our Constitution tenets is separation of church and state, and you can't allow churches and religious organizations to interfere in making laws when it comes to family planning services and say that that's okay, and then say we're following the Constitution. Those two things do not match. You cannot do that. So just hopefully this made you think and understand some stuff, and maybe you won't be so prone to rah-rah ish boom bah on this bandwagon, when the truth of the matter is you're hurting a large majority of people that have nothing to do with abortions, nothing at all to do with abortions. They're just in there trying to get their, prostate cancer screening. They're just trying to get their contraceptives because they can't afford them. You're hurting those people. You're not hurting the abortion people because they're paying for theirs. You're hurting everybody else who didn't ask for it. So that's my spiel for today. Sorry I got on a bandwagon, but I'm pretty upset about this issue right now, and I just want to make people think before they leap. So good luck. Take this information, spread it to other people. Let other people know that what we're doing is not the right way to do it, guys. All right. So until next time, keep plugging away. Watch my videos. Thanks for everybody's watching them. And I'll see you the next time on Andy the Universal Nurse. Signing off. Bye.